Hello and happy Lunar Nodes transit shift night. um, so a few things. You can choose to put your video on or off. It's up to you. There's going to be a bit of sharing and activities. If at that time you want to turn it on, that's great. If you can keep yourself muted during the duration, unless you're talking, that'd be great as well. The talk, and I say this for those of you who frequent my talks, I say 90 minutes, but I tend to go over. And I do apologize. I cut down, and I end up taking a 2 hour. If you need to leave, the recording will be sent tomorrow. So it's absolutely okay. Just, you can, just leave and finish off where you left off. And you'll get that either this evening or tomorrow. So as most of the classes that I teach and prepare, I really never know what's going to happen. I start getting kind of information from my guidance weeks before, and it just turns into something that wasn't what I even intended to. And that's part of what happens in this sort of work. So a lot of activities to sort of work the energy of the nodes. There will be some lecture piece so you understand what they mean, how to track them, what you can do with them in your physical life, in your practical life using your chart. And then I invite you to participate in the activities, even if you don't share, even if you can't concentrate tonight, rewatch or sit and really sit with the activities and the questions so that you can make the most out of this transit that you have for the next 18 months. A lot of people are now coming to astrology. I believe it's the new religion and tradition of the new age, and it's exciting to see. However, that being said, a lot of astrology that's out there is being piecemealed. And it's like, oh, a transit's happening. What does this mean for me for the next 18 months? And this, like all spiritual traditions, are meant to be looked at comprehensively over a lifetime, over cycles, over patterns. And that's what we're going to look at this evening, how this particular transit fits in the larger context of your life so that you can maximize the transit, but understand what it's showing you in the larger context of what you're doing here in terms of your spiritual path. So I really invite you to look at it that way than rather just a quick question and answer. What's this about? And what can I do with it today? Look at it more comprehensively. If you have any questions, of course, what I do recommend, if you have not already, while I'm talking, Google a free chart. I recommend that you Google a circular one, the picture, because I'm going to show some examples so that you can follow along, and I'm going to show you the glyphs. I don't know what levels everyone's at, so I want to make sure that everyone gets the adequate information. If we have time at the end and you want to stay after and ask specifically about your chart because you're having difficulty, I have no problem staying after, but after I respect everybody's time listening, then I can stay a few minutes and address your personal questions about your house, your cusps, etc. But in the meantime, get a free chart. A lot of the charts will give you a list. I do not recommend that. I recommend the chart that's circular so you could see all the glyphs and all of the cusps, because that's what we're going to be referring to. So tonight we are going to be talking about the lunar nodes that start for the next 18 months, and every single person is having this shift somewhere in their life, somewhere in their chart. So this is a universal cycle that's affecting everybody. So tonight, I want to dedicate this class to the god Vishnu. His picture is on the slide. And in the Hindu pantheon, he is the god of balance. And we're going to be talking about the importance of the nodes, the mythology, a little bit of mythology with Vishnu, and balance. It's believed that the only illness or the only disease is imbalance. And it's the job of a lifetime, or at least the attempt to live a life to achieve some version of balance. And the nodes are all about balancing. So I'm going to open the space with some holy stick. And what I'd like for you each for a moment to evoke Vishnu, to evoke balance in your life and what that looks like to you, and ponder for a moment this question. We're going to be talking about wander and wonder tonight. So just bringing in Vishnu so that he can guide the session. And the invitation is to ponder if you've wandered aimlessly in this earth, in this lifetime, perhaps lost, without a map, without a path, or seemingly without one. Have you wondered about the amazement of it all, perhaps in the midst of melancholy or sadness or joy even, how much wonder there is, no matter how lost or uncertain you may be, and how all of this is contained all at once within us and in the world and in this universe. And that's really the invitation for tonight. And like I said before, I never really know where these things are going. I have the knowledge, but I never really understand where the wisdom is going until it kind of takes into my life and takes over. And this question has come up quite a bit with the nodes, this concept of, are we wanderers? And what are we here to wonder? And what are we here to do here in this thing we call life? So we're going to talk about life and the nodes. The north node, you'll see later, is moving into Aries, the south node into Libra. And Aries is the beginning of the spiritual path in esoteric astrology. And it is the head, and it rules our thoughts, which rules our spiritual journey. And it also is that first force, that first passion, that first penetration of life. And that's really what we're talking about with these nodes. Are you living? What is life? Questioning, what are you here to do and be and express and experience? So if you can, for the next hour, 2 hours, kind of keep that in your energy field, this idea of the amazement, the uncertainty, the wonder, lust of life. I invite you to do so. So wonder is where it starts. And though wonder is where it ends, this is no futile path. While wandering down the path of wonder, I briefly escape the world of separation and enter the world of unity. When I stumbled upon this quote, it just spoke to this idea of balance, that we feel that we're all here alone. We feel like we're doing our own thing, that no one understands us, that we're different, that we're unique, and all of that is so true. But it's really when we can understand that all of us are just sort of wanderers, and at times lost, and at times really in awe of what all of this is, that we find that that's a space where we all meet. And that's the space of the nodes of Aries and Libra. Aries is more about individuation and the personal self, while Libra is the unity, the relationship, the community. And we get to each explore in the next 18 months what we need to do alone, what we need to do in unity, what we need to let go of to move forward on our own individual path, who we need to really cling on to get there. And that in essence is life. It's this sort of going back and forth of ourselves and others and community and selfishness and service. And that's what this nodal shift is all about. What might appear to be separate is really exactly where we all find one another in unison. So I'd like everybody to close their eyes for a moment. Before you close your eyes, take a look at this picture. This picture is a diagram of the elliptical path that the nodes in the moon take. And I want you to situate yourself on that green spot. So close your eyes, and in your mind's eye, imagine that you're at the center of the Earth's orbit. And what's spinning around you is the moon and the two nodes. One is the south node, and one is the north node. So once you're centered on that spot, and you can feel the rotation of the nodes and the moon around you, go up to the south node. It looks like a cup, like a U, and ask the south node what quality you already possess that's held in the cup. Don't think, let it just come to you. Now take that cup and drink it. This is the cup of your immortality. And identify what it tastes like. Just connect to that for a moment. Now go back on your spot. And once again, connect to the nodes and the moon spinning around. And next, you're going to go up to the north node. It's an empty cup upside down. And grab it by the hands, the handles, and ask the north node what it needs from you to fill it up to live a full life. Now in each hand, put one cup in each hand, one in your south, one of the south node in one hand and the north node in the other. And ask them in unison how to balance what you already have and what you need. But take a deep breath, slowly come back into your body. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Does anybody want to share? Andrea, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you. For the south node, I felt forgiveness, which I was surprised.
Okay.
Very. And then for the north, I saw embracing authenticity. And for unison, I felt community and being of service.
Beautiful. Did you get a taste for your south node for the forgiveness?
Yes, it tastes like rose water.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
So
you said that you're surprised that forgiveness is the south node. The south node right now is in Libra. And I'm not a big believer in forgiveness of others, but definitely forgiveness of self, right? Because there is no other in universal spiritual teachings. So if we impart forgiveness on another, it's really with ourselves. And the north node being in Aries, one of the key words is authenticity. It's that real identification with self, with our authentic nature. So thank you very much. I see that there is a Nicole, South wisdom, okay, North action, and unified trust. Okay, that's lovely. So action being Aries, right? Very movement oriented and moving forward. And the South holds the wisdom that we have from past lives, that we come in with these gifts that we are already connected to, whether we know it or not. Sophia, South collective. Okay, so that's very Libra.
Yeah,
North
sorry,
determination.
I forgot how to use Zoom for a second,
No
and
problem.
it's mine separately.
North determination, very Aries.
Yeah,
And
but I was very clear with when I got my message as far as Aries and like the North Node, but everything felt kind of like muggy and like murky with my Libra when I tried to drink from that cup. And I got bittersweet as my taste, but I don't know why.
You'll learn later on tonight.
Thanks, Mom.
The South Node, part of the reason why it's bittersweet, especially for you, Jim, that you guys have a lot of Libra in your chart, and I'm going to speak specifically to that wherever you have it, but especially if you have very strong Libra placements in your chart, you're going to feel some bit of bittersweet because it's something that's taken from you that you're not necessarily ready to be part with and can bring grief. So it's a great point. And Suzanne, South love. Okay, so Venus ruled Libra. North self-worth. That's great. Aries, very much about turning selfishness into self, and values. Excellent. Which really is that sort of connector between the spirit and the material with the nodes. Jen, South structure and discipline. Okay. North creativity, and unified and feeling of ease, the taste of the metallic. Interesting. Okay, so the metal is directly related to the moon. And we're actually going to talk about the moon because obviously this is the lunar nodes. So I want you to pay attention to that, Jen, when we get to that part about the moon and what the function of the nodes are, is to really get us to detach from that. So that's a really marked taste that you brought in. Thank you. Adriana, South kindness. Okay, very Libra, and your moon's in Libra, and you're the kindest person I know. North, self, and the drink was sweet. Okay, and so the North Node with Aries is that that sense of self, or at least trying to have self-love and self-worth. Jim, South generosity. Again, the Libra, and the North, the authenticity. And being that you're a triple Libra, it's going to be very clear that the authenticity is that path that's opening forward. And it's scary because there's no map, so to speak, but there is, and we're going to talk about that. And it tastes sweet and astringent. So again, that kind of bittersweet. So you and Sophia, the both triple Libras in the group, got that real marked. Awesome. Okay. So I usually start with the course objectives, but I wanted to kind of get everybody into the energy before we talked about the lecture part. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about universal laws. We're going to talk about a very important symbol that's found within the nodes, but it's also part of the symbology of every spiritual tradition. And there's multiple meanings within a symbol, and I'm going to break it down, but everyone will be familiar with the symbol. We'll understand what the nodes are and how they're useful in your spiritual development. We're going to talk briefly, just so you understand the interconnectedness of everything, what the eclipses and the moon is in relationship to the nodes, because they're all related. The yearly eclipses, when we talk about eclipse season, the shifting of the nodes, it happens every 18 months, your lunar nodes in your natal chart, and your moon sign. So we're going to go into showing how all of those are related. the cycles of the nodes and how they unfold patterns and themes in your life. So when we first started, I talked about piecemeal and how everything is related, everything is cyclical. And this is going to be important. I'm going to bring you back to certain years. And this is something that you can do after the class to start identifying the thread and the pattern that is woven in the themes of your life, similar to numerology, but they're related to the nodes, because we are guided. And these patterns are the map that unfold so that we can continue walking in this wondrous world. And then we're going to calculate the nodal transits. We'll talk about the different houses and where your nodes are located and a relationship to your birth chart and how they're working together. Any questions so far? So let's start with the universal laws. The nodes carry many, many of the universal laws. I'm going to focus on two primarily that are going to be woven into tonight. The first is the law of polarity. So the universal laws are 7, and I take them from the Kabbalion for those who are new to my work. I have a book on the 8 universal laws. There's this main 7 laws, and then the law of vibration is explained through the law of octaves, but really universal laws are 7. So we're going to focus on 2 of them tonight. The law of polarity. And so if you look at the nodes, this is the south node and this is the north node. On your natal chart, they're in complete opposition. They're complete polar opposites, as far apart as they can get. And so they absolutely are about reconciling the opposites, reconciling the paradoxes. And we're going to do a couple of activities about this. The law states that everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has a pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. People have difficulty with that one sometimes. Opposites are identical in nature. Extremes meet, and all truths are but half-truths. If you only focus on, let's say, your south node or one side of a pair, then you're only in a half-truth. The function of the nodes is the balance. It's to bring them together to reconcile so that we have a full life filled with strengths that we bring in from previous incarnations and know which way forward on the strengths that we need to still develop in this lifetime. The second law we're going to focus on is the law of rhythm, and it states everything has its tides. Everything flows out and in. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left, and rhythm compensates. So the swinging of the nodes, being that they're extreme opposites, and the patterns and cycles in our life every 9 and 18 years, and I'll explain how they move you through life, are constantly in a swing. What rhythm compensates means is, as you take ownership of the skills found in your nodes, as you take responsibility for the transiting nodes and ownership, the rhythm doesn't have to swing into these polar opposites anymore. You're actually in control of the rhythm of your life. That's what we call being in the flow. And so we use these nodes and we use the houses in which they're located and our own spiritual understanding and spiritual growth and tracking previous years of the nodes to find the thematic, to realize how we can live in a balanced state, how we can live in a content state, how we could stop being in the drama and the chaos of life, feeling that we're just being tossed around, but rather feel that even though we're not really ever in control, we feel at least we have control of this world here. Any questions? So has anyone ever asked why they're here? Hit me. What have you asked? What have you discovered? What do you think? It's all made up anyway. So hit me with what you got.
I think everyone at like any age may have.
At what age are you asking? With a mother like me? At what age are you asking why are we here?
I think I asked that question very early on, like 5, 6. But I came to the conclusion. I mean, I told you a long time ago, remember, where like God isn't real. I don't believe in heaven or hell. I think this is all evolution. This is all bullshit. We're here because you and dad had sex. And like, I was like, that's why I'm here. That's but also you race us kind of just like that, very realistic.
Yep. And focused on the here and the now, right? The present, which is ultimately the balance. Nicole, I just read your comment about the 18 years and we're going to talk about that. So that's perfect. Wait till we get there and we'll talk about that. So why? Yes, most of us at some time, whether because we're wandering lost or we're wondering in the honest of this world, why the hell are we here? And we look up and we ask these questions. And most of the times we don't know, or you end up in my office and then you still don't know. I don't know. None of us know. And so this is part of why we're here. The nodes unfold a map for us. They really do. And so we're going to talk a bit about that. So if you have paper or pen, and if not, just consider the question. What is the biggest, craziest, most expensive, ridiculous, I thought of like the larger adjectives, nonconformist thing that you've ever done? Anyone?
For me, the first thing that comes to me is when I left Georgia, my then home state since birth, to move to New York City.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so moving from a small town to big city type of thing. Anyone else?
I'll share that I feel like I'm living mine right now, which was like, yeah, just move across the country without a plan, camp, go immediately into a crazy shamanic immersion, into my relationship, have no stability with housing, and still living into the question.
Okay, great. Anyone else? And it does not matter how old you are. To date, to this moment, what is the craziest non-planned, non-conforming, unstable thing that you've ever done that people would say, oh my God, that's nuts?
Packing up
Adriana?
4 kids and moving to the jungle.
Go ahead. Francis, I have a question.
Yes, Angelica.
Does it have to be non-conforming? Because like truthfully, the most expensive thing I've ever done is go to Disney because the tickets are so expensive. But I was like, that's so conformist. Everybody goes to Disney. So I don't know.
Get crazier. I want you to think of a crazier thing. And if it's personal, you don't have to share it, but I want you to get honest with something that's probably going to be out of the norm, or people would be like, you, like straight A student, follows all the rules type of thing. Okay.
Okay.
How about scuba diving 100 feet to a ship?
This comes from the most control freak person ever.
That's right.
And then she stopped scuba diving after that because she got sick.
Well, because I get very seasick, so it didn't work out. But I did manage to do that. Okay. And to hike down the Grand Canyon in July, which I don't recommend.
Woo. You have so many
Andrea?
crazy stories.
I was living in Vancouver and I moved back to Mexico to a really small town, really small town with an ugly house with a guy that was 10 years older than me, and invested all my money in like some projects that didn't pan out. And I was like with no money, homeless, and went back to my mom's house.
And I see 2 comments. There's a chance all my plans have been crazy and unconforming until I had kids. Okay. Anyone else?
I packed up and traveled the world for a year and kind of just kept going.
I'd get an opportunity and go to another country without really any forward plan.
Okay, excellent. So most of you said that, right? No plan, unstable, didn't know what I was getting into. Maybe it looks on paper that it was a failure. Maybe it didn't work out the way that you did, but most of you laughed and shared and smiled and opened your eyes wide and said it was crazy, but right? There's this energy of who gives a shit? Like, I'm doing this. And that's what this is about. So the question is, why did you move cross country with no plan and live in a camp? Why did you go live with a guy 10 years older and become homeless? Why did you scuba dive and, you know, cross the desert when it's 150 degrees outside? Why did you move to the jungle with, you know, 4 kids if you weren't going to live? What was the purpose of that? If you got to the other side, if you managed to get through the doubt, if you managed to get through the, oh my God, what will people say? If you manage to scrounge the money, if you manage to get the guts, the chutzpah to do it, what happened? What happened? How did you go right back into your old self, your old pattern, your old sort of, and again, we cannot live in a non-conformity all the time. That is not what I'm saying. But at one point, when we manage to find that stability again, we forget to live. And it seems as if these nodes wake that desire up in us to say, and it may not always be the biggest thing, right? Sometimes it could literally be changing your nail color to something that you don't normally get, but it's a perspective shift. It's something that, why not? And this particular nodal shift, because it's Aries and Libra, Aries is ruled by Mars and Libra is ruled by Venus. And it is sperm and an egg. It is masculine and feminine. I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about law of gender, which is energy that we all have. That's the essence of life. And so this nodal shift is asking you to live, to find out the question. If you did XYZ, if you did this once, why aren't you living? Why are you doing these things if you're so afraid of life? Because that really is what the North Node in Aries is. It's the trailblazer, it's the head, but our thoughts get in the way. And we'll talk a little bit more about the importance of thoughts and really debunking the thought patterns that keep us so in the status quo. Now, you can't do it alone. And that's the other part of this shift, is there may be places and people and things that you have to leave behind to trailblaze, to pave a new path, no map, right? Just whatever's being sort of, you're trusting internally. But then we're going to consider who comes with us, who helps us, who's that community that helps us become that person, that lived being that we want to just emerge as it comes out of ourselves. So Aries is the what? A life-affirming, unpaved trail. Aries rules the head. You're not thinking, you're probably impulsive, you're probably saying, what else? I have nothing else to lose, right? And we need those moments in life sometimes. But it's also when we get into that mode of just going forward, we stop thinking, we start acting. Several of you said that in your meditation, that you got an action. And so what is this unpaved trail? The reality is that you do not have an unpaved trail. Your nodes tell you exactly where to go, how to go, with what direction to go. You have natal nodes, which we'll talk about the relationship to this transit here. Your natal nodes by sign and by house, and I said to check that out earlier when you do a search for your chart, if you don't know already, is going to be the map of this lifetime. Your south node, no matter what the sign or house, are the traits that you already come with, strengths, tools in your toolbox. However, you get very stuck in that. It becomes very easy. So the North Node helps you get out of the complacency, you still have your strengths and your tools, and move forward in that trajectory. Your life every 9 and 18 years, and we'll talk about the patterns, is going to force you into that North Node, whether you like it or not. The every 18 months nodal transits, which is what started today, is going to tell you what area of your life to live, what area of your life to move into, what area of your life needs a perspective shift, where you need to change your thought structure around so that you can become the epitome of your North Node in your natal chart. They work together. And we're going to talk about the moon because it's obviously involved. So with this particular shift, the question is, what? What are you going to do where you have transiting Aries North Node to pave a life-affirming trajectory? And the Libra is who? Who are you going to do it with? Who do you want to bring along? Who do you need to help you? What traits do the people in your life have that you really need to get to the other side, to get that life-affirming path underway or in continuity? So there's a big belief, and it goes both ways, as most things in spirituality, that sometimes you outgrow relationships, you outgrow people, and people leave, or you need to leave them. I'm not a believer in, oh, it's a toxic thing, and that's why they have to leave. But we do finish out karmic contracts with people. So it is very common that where you have the South Node transiting, that you may lose people from that community or that particular type of relationship or of that sign. But really start contemplating, if you are going to let someone go in that particular area in your chart, what were they there to teach you? What did you need to learn from them that you can put in your toolbox to continue? Because other people will enter as others leave. And you may not lose anybody, but you might, let's say, change jobs. If you have a South Node transit in your 6th house, the house of work, you might have a different social group in terms of your work life. But what did you get from that last experience that you could take with you? We never lose an opportunity to question, why was I there? What did that relationship or that job or that experience have to teach me? So the South Node may close doors so that new doors can open, but we never want to walk away with without using the opportunity to seeing why we were there. Okay. So Nicole got out of a trance and let go of things that were weighing her down. And I'm assuming emotional if you're saying they're not yours. So let's talk a little bit about this map and this path. And there's one in the sky astronomically. I'm not an astronomer. I'm giving you very basic, but then I'm going to bring it to the psyche, which is my domain. So this is the path of the Earth, the moon, and the nodes. So the moon orbits the Earth about every 28 days. So when we start with new moon, back to new moon, and so forth, that's about a 28, 29-year day cycle. And it's this elliptical orbit. So here's our moon, and this ellipses is this gray line. We're here on Earth, and there are nodes on either side of the moon's path, the North Node or the ascending node, and the South Node or the descending node. These are viewed as mathematical points. However, what we understand about spirituality and spiritual psychology and archetypal astrology is that whatever is happening in the cosmos, when we look up and we wonder, what is that? All of that exists in our head. And we've seen enough with archetypal astrology and spiritual philosophy that when something is discovered in the cosmos, in astronomy, that now we as a collective human race gain consciousness around that same planet or asteroid, etc. So the same thing happens, even though these are mathematical and maybe imaginary points, they actually impregnate in our psyche and they mean something. And this is a very simplistic view, This goes much more into detail with, we have the moon, we have the earth, and we have the nodes, which is going to focus on. But this ties into the eclipses. This ties into the black moon as well. So this can be layered and layered upon in terms of what aspects it has in our psyche. So we're going to just strip it down to the basics. So they're imaginary points in the psyche. And the word node or path is suffering and to go. So despite the suffering, or because of the suffering, and wanting to answer that question of why, we keep going and searching and seeking. What relevance does the moon have to the nodes? And we're going to talk more about this. The moon is the original wound. The original wound across the board in everyone's psyche. The way you view the world is that through your moon sign, and where your moon is in your chart by house and by sign. So we see the world through that moon matrix. I have a book called The Shadow Side of the Mother's Love. If you want to know more about this, I go very deep into every moon sign, etc. And so if that's where we're situated rather than the earth, we see the world through the moon. The whole function of the nodes is to shake us up, to pull us out of that really rigid view of the world where we think that our needs have to be met, or that we're victims, or we don't take personal responsibility, or our mother and our father failed us, or why are we here suffering in this body, and we should be somewhere else. All of those questions that come in are because we situate ourselves in our psyche as the moon, and the function of the nodes is to shake and to toss us. The earth situates you into your current reality. We are here on earth. No matter what you think, no matter if you're an alien, if you're a reptile, no matter where you think you should be, and you may be in another lifetime or previous, and you're bringing that wisdom in this incarnation, you are on earth, and we need to be situated there. Hence why Vishnu, and you'll see in a minute with the myth, situates us into the earth. And then from balancing with the nodes, how to really live a balanced, self-mastered life as a result. But we have to understand that we are currently situated in time and space in this earth. The moon is not what we are. And the node's job is to remind us to be on earth, to live fully on earth, and to detach from our moon or our earthly mother and father as well. Your south node is linked to the karmic gifts that you bring from the past, and also what needs to let go of. You become very complacent and comfortable with that sign, the people of that sign and the traits of that sign, especially the lowest nature of that sign. The north node feels very uncomfortable. The people of that sign feel uncomfortable. The qualities they possess feel uncomfortable. And it's exactly where the map will take you, where your future is to live a full balanced life, and is exactly what needs to be embraced, both the low nature of that sign and, of course, all of the strengths and qualities of that sign. Did everybody get a chance to run their chart to get their natal north and south? If you didn't do that, go and take a moment to Google and get that for yourself so that you have some anchoring in what your context is. So here is another version of the orbit. Here you are on Earth. Your life is on Earth in this incarnation. And your nodes are there to help you detach from what you think life is. Every single one of us thinks the way that our psyche is set up is to believe that our psyche, that our life giver is our moon sign, and it's not. And so the movement of the nodes every 18 months that move, and they go retrograde. They go backwards or seemingly backwards. They never go forward because it feels like, oh my God, I'm losing things. I'm moving in a tunnel, in a whirlwind. What's happening here? It's intended to churn you, and I'll explain that in the myth momentarily, is to soften you up and have you detach and let go of the vision that the life giver is mom, that the life giver is emotion, that the life giver is the womb, that the life giver is already predetermined by what you inherited at the moment of conception through birth and in childhood. That's what the South Node is. Your South Node speaks to these childhood teachings, values, experiences that you take as law, and they're very closely related to your moon sign. Whereas your North Node says, no, that's just your early years. Great, thanks, Mom. Let's move forward and live your own life. Pave your own road because it is not paved for you. And we're going to do an activity to see if you're actually living your own life or if you're still living your parents' life. So the etymology of the word nod or node: move about, shake, beat, rivet, pound, push, scratch, scrape. Not sounds a lot like life. Uncertainty, a wander. The word wander, if the Hebrew root is a nod, is kind of like in the land of Nod in the book of Genesis, like into exile. You feel like you've been exiled on this planet. You have no map. You have nothing to guide you. We've all felt like that at some point. Wander and wonder. When we look up and we see the wonders, or we travel and we see some majestic experiences. It's outside of the face of God. This is a very important connotation of the meaning of this word. Again, this is not logical. So regardless of what your maternal wound is, your mother wound, which is the first wound that we all share, it's located in your moon sign, some worse than others in the earthly world. It is telling you that your node, specifically your North Node, takes you beyond that face, because we all inevitably think our mother is the face of God. That is a subconscious, universal thing. And this says there is another face, a universal face, oftentimes your own, and what you came here to do. It also means reverence, modest, humble. We're humbled and we have reverence when we realize that we are connected, all of us, that we do have a path, that there is a road that unfolds if we trust, if we get into the balance of things, into the flow of things. And you'll see in the symbol associated with that, we really do have there's a system to this madness that we call life. The number 9 is here related in 90, and we're going to talk about the cycles of the nodes are 9 and 18, and 1 and 8 is 9. So that's also found in the etymology of the word. The nodes, like the lymph nodes, clean up our waste in the immune system. Our North Node is our spiritual immune system. It keeps nudging us and pushing us and pushing us, and we don't know why, and we don't know when, but it happens. And so having this wisdom and this map gives us an idea that things are happening for us and we're guided along the way. Now, we have free will and choice that we'll talk about, and there's consciousness level that we'll talk about, because those things are up to the human being. That is not anyone's business but your own. But if you choose to do what the soul is longing for, to honor the life, the map, the moving forward, the going into uncomfortable spaces, you choose higher vibration consciousness, this starts to unfold and you realize that you are indeed a little beat up and scratched and scraped. No one comes out alive and no one comes out without some suffering. But we really realize the reverence of a life when we start to honor these teachings and these patterns and these cycles. It's pretty powerful. Any questions so far? Okay. So I always like to use mythology. Mythology is one of those, it's like symbology. Mythology and symbology is the language of the unconscious. And when we can connect to a myth, to a symbol, to an archetype, to a dream, and the meanings in a dream, for instance, a tarot card, those symbols, that's the bridge from the unconscious to the conscious mind. And so in every class I teach, I bring in mythology for this reason. I'm going to show you an image and I'm going to explain the teaching in the image to show you how this is found in every single mythological structure, in every tradition related to this of the nodes, because it's telling us that through the churning of our life, the living of our life, we are indeed becoming immortal. And so I wanted to dedicate this class to Vishnu for this reason. So in the mythology of Hinduism, and this is found in Hebrew mythology, this is found in around the world. I just chose this one because it's such a powerful message because of the meaning of the ocean and the moon. In Hinduism, in the Hindu mythology, they have a text called the Puranas. And there is a myth that the churning of the oceans, and you can see the men here churning the oceans, create what is known as the Amrit, the nectar of immortality. The ocean is symbolic of the mother. Water is emotion, water is the womb. And when we churn and we're beat up and we're scraped and we're turned and moved and pulled and detached from the idea that the God is the face of God is mother, that the moon by sign and by house is the way we view the world. When we remove that version of the veil, we actually can become our immortal selves. So in this particular myth, Vishnu had the vial filled with the Amrit, or the nectar of immortality. And there was a serpent, and we're going to see the symbol of the serpent, called Swabarnu, who was about to be killed by Vishnu, but he had drunk the nectar of immortality and he was alive. So the most that Vishnu can do was slice him in half. The head became Rahu, the north node, and the tail became Ketu, the south node. So if you think of the tail, it's the tail end of your last lifetime, the strengths that you come in from that lifetime, but also, again, the comforts that you brought in that you may not want to let go of. Whereas the head is Aries. Head is the future, the moving forward with maybe no path and no road and no strategy and no stability, but you know that that's the way forward. So this mythology is very marked, and we're going to talk a bit about the symbolism of the serpent in a moment. So in these mythological tales, what they're trying to do is explain your own spiritual self. They're trying to give you insight into your own psyche. Every single myth relates back to our own psyche, why human behavior, why we're built the way we are. And so this particular myth is about when we join the head and the tail, when we become balanced from the head and the tail, that indeed is our individuation process. That's how we become immortal. That's how we leave our legacy. That's how we live a life of authenticity and of self. And so we have to detach from what the past is, childhood, wounding, parents, what others say, social contracts, all of that for a time being, so that our immortal self, our authentic self, can emerge. That's the function of the transiting nodes, is to get you closer to your natal nodes balance. Any questions about this? So symbol is another way that the unconscious speaks to the conscious mind. That's why sometimes when we see animals, what does it mean? We Google it, or we see a tarot card and we attract to a symbol on a card. It tells us something about our inner state. Same with the planets and the archetypes in the astrology chart. So symbology is another important language of the psyche to let you know where you are. So the symbology of the nodes, when they are unified, creates something called the Urobos. The Urobos is represented here as the serpent eating its tail, or here as the serpent eating its tail. And this is known as the lemniscat, or the symbol of infinity. Infinity is another word for immortality. Here we have the serpent with the two heads linked to the sun, which is Aries or the masculine, or your father, and the moon, which is the feminine, Libra, and your mother. And through the unification, and you see that the serpents are unified here at the neck, down here is you on earth, living a full balanced life with both your rational and your emotional and your masculine and your feminine energies. And the goal of this particular node, because of the emphasis on Aries and Libra, is to achieve this type of balance between spirit, matter, consciousness, unification, completion, and a full life. Because at the end of the day, Aries rules the sperm, Libra rules the egg, and that's what life is. So this is indeed a rebirth cycle, not being born from parents, but being born from yourself, choosing what life means for you. The serpent, across the board in symbology, represents low consciousness, animal consciousness. The raising of the serpent, which we see here as it rises, or here off of the ground, means that we're choosing higher consciousness. If in every single cycle of the nodes, you continuously do the same thing, I'm just going to use a low consciousness word for Aries, fight, conflict, aggressive, impulsive, right? Never thinking. Well, you're just going to have a life full of that, more and more conflict. The idea is to be strategic, to be assertive, to pause, to listen, then make a choice. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But as we get more and more nodes throughout our aged life, hopefully we learn higher consciousness around the same exact signs that are our natal signs, and then of course the transiting ones as well. Any questions so far? Okay. So I want to play a song, and I picked the video that has the words, and I just want to see what stands out. So it's the song Wonder by Natalie Merchant. I'm going to pause it because YouTube will block the song if I play it recording. What stood out? Okay, someone wrote, Haley strikes me with the feeling of being the outsider, misunderstood without explanation, yet faith and destiny smile and laugh. Bring lightheartedness with some degree of assurance that there is a point to the life and effort, even if it is strange and difficult to grasp. You're always such a beautiful writer. So the fate and the destiny, she said that a couple times. The South Node is the fate, and the destiny is the North Node. So there is a path, right? She'll make her way. You will make your way, and that will kind of guide that destiny. Anyone want to guess why the fate might be the South Node?
It's what we'll kind of just fall into if we don't try. It's what we came with, so it's what we're comfortable with.
Exactly, and it's that shadow aspect. So the South Node is not only through the transiting, but primarily in your chart is that shadow aspect. That's why I said, look at the lowest consciousness of the sign of your South Node, because it's going to tell you that complacency and perhaps what you think you don't need to work on because you have the strengths of that sign, but there's an underlying low consciousness shadow aspect that if not brought in to consciousness, you're going to project on to other people. Anything else stand out in the lyrics? I have them here in case you you don't remember.
I can't keep up with typing. I was trying to type. I thought it was really beautiful. I mean, I actually didn't even see the image of or I didn't realize the pregnant belly on the slide. And then after listening to it, I was like, oh yeah, it felt like birth, like, you know, fate and destiny is coming for you, you know? Just with the love and patience and faith. And I thought it was kind of funny, laughed as my body she lifted, know this child will be gifted. And it felt like gifted was just the ability to be in creation.
Right. And creation of oneself, right? Because that's the message of they say I must be one of the wonders of God's own creation. Is you beyond that of what was told to you that you could be, what was imparted on you of the box you had to fill. And so when I ask you, when did you just say screw it and you just did it and you didn't think, that was connecting to that raw primal, this has to come out of me, this has to be birthed out of me. And at those moments, and not always, but at those moments, which is the invitation of Aries, balance with the Libra, and we're going to get there, it's that thing of saying I have to birth myself from myself. I have to just not think of anyone for a minute. Hence the South Libra. I have to just go where my head and my heart and where I know it feels so true to follow. And that's the way. That's the way. It's the birth of self. They can offer no explanation. And that was the question, Sophia, why I asked why. We don't know. No one knows. We don't know why we're here. We don't know where we go. Obviously, we have these conversations. But what I can tell you is that this chart, this astrology map, at the moment where time and space conferred, that you came in, there's a meaning there. Your job is to find what that meaning is. That's an individual, journey for each person. But at the moment of conception, when time and space and you enter, that's what this song really reminds me of. That's not an accident. There's a reason for that creation. Your job, your life, your function, your fate, your destiny, doing it your way is figuring out what that is for you. But it's not accidental, despite perhaps no one but yourself at the end of your life understanding or not the explanation of what was. The song felt motherless. Interesting. Well, I think from a earthly mother, Suzanne, I think I can agree with you on that, which is the point of the nodes. And we're going to see that in relationship to I don't know if that's how you feel, but when you use those words, that's what comes up. It goes from this image of an earthly womb and hence the cosmic womb. That's when we birth ourselves. That's the beauty of the chart. The chart is saying, yes, you came through a vehicle of the moon that was an earthly mother, an earthly body. Dad's involved there too, obviously. But there is something beyond that face of God. The North Node tells you the universe has a plan and a map for you to birth yourself. And that can feel very scary and motherless, of course, when you're birthing yourself, right? So Bert Hellinger is the father of family constellations theory. And he says, your parents gave you life, and that's enough. We needed a vehicle to get here. And we got here. And we have the map, and we've got these nodes, and we've got these transits. And yes, we have a South Node that gave us childhood experiences and gave us some rules and gave us some structure and gave us some wounding. The rest is our job. And the nodes is what turns us and assists us in detaching from the South, from what once was, from perhaps unfinished business from a last life, that tail, so that we really could be the head and trailblaze the path of the soul that we each came to do authentically and individuated. So I walk the beach, and this thing is bubbling up in me for weeks. And I never take pictures. and I'm walking down the boardwalk and I see this, and I've seen this multiple times, but this day I take the picture and I've been contemplating this one life, right? We have this one life here on earth in this body. And what came to me was, we're given this life, right? Our parents gave us life, but are you still just living, quote unquote, the life you were given? Or are you living a life, living the life that you choose, that you want, that your map says, that indicates? And so some of the questions I'd like to open up is, whose life are you living and for whom? The nodes, as they transit through the house, they have you answering this question, or at least contemplating the question, specifically Libra and Aries, but nodal shifts when they happen. So Aries is our physical world. It's the actual first house of the astrology chart. Not to say that everybody has an Aries ascendant, but that first house is ruled by Aries, meaning that's where we come into the world. That's why we're situated on Earth. So what is your life shaping up to be in this physical plane, in this time and space, in this place that we all inhabit? And is it on track for what you want? Now, there isn't any linear time in spirituality, but as you go through these cycles and you start to track them later on, when I give you the years and such, is it on track? Are you following that pattern? Are you raising vibration and higher consciousness around that path and that pattern that emerges every 9 and 18 years for you to go deeper? Libra has to do with relationships. And it has to do with relationships that you currently have in your world, in your lived experience. And is there something or someone or a type of person that you want in your relationships that you don't currently have? And if you do, that's another way to look at it as well. And who's helping shape your physical reality? Who are the people? What are the relationships, Libra, that are helping shape your physical reality as it is? And this is crucial to understand. That's why I said earlier, I'm not a believer in, oh, someone needs to leave or come. It has to do with where you are vibrationally and psychically in the work that you're doing. The relationships that are forming and creating your physical reality are directly related to where you are in your state of mind. They are not accidental. So if you're in an unhealthy relationship, the unhealthy relationship with self, for instance. This is the balance of Libra and Aries. Those relationships are not there accidentally. They're there for you to question, are these the people, the types of people that I want to shape my reality? And the reality is internal. We're not talking about external. If that person is in your orbit externally, it's because that quality about that person is internal, both positive and negative. So oftentimes with these nodes, people will say, especially South Node and Libra, oh, I have to break up with a relationship, or I have to XYZ this person, or an old boyfriend came back. Well, and why? That's the pause to take. Why did I allow that in my reality? What is this here to show me, to teach me, to have me question about the life that I'm creating? And life and spirituality is not created by external circumstances. There's no such thing as an external. It's internal, going back to the psyche and the orb and the moon and the nodes. If it's happening here in the head in Aries, it's happening externally in the relationships of the world, Libra. Does anybody have anything that they want to share about something currently that perhaps they're struggling with, or that they want to eliminate, or they don't understand why perhaps a relationship? And you don't have to, but it's just an offering if anyone wants to share, has a question about how this relates back to their their physical reality and how the relationships give information about what's going on inside. Andrea?
What you just said, like, I was dating this person back in Vancouver, and I've been doing a lot of healing, especially with family constellations, and he just came back into my life, and I see everything very differently, as if he was like a different person. And I was checking, like, my south node is in Aries in the 2nd house, and my north is in Libra in the 8th house. But it's just, it doesn't make sense, and I talked shit about him to everyone, so like nobody likes him. But then because of all the healing that I did, I feel like I see him very different. But then I'm like, is it my head? Is it my actual heart? Am I deceiving myself? Like, it's like a weird position to be in.
Probably all of the above, but most things start with your head, right? Our thoughts create the reality. And so it's interesting that you keep taking ownership for the healing. I healed, I see him differently. And so what healed was not that he's less selfish or less egotistical or less abusive or whatever his issue was that you used to talk bad about with your friends. What happens is that you've reconciled internally, perhaps owned it, integrated it, accepted that is you. And so no longer is that mirror an ugly, dirty, rotten mirror, but rather one that you can tolerate and accept and perhaps even have compassion for because you have it internally. That's what this Aries Libra is about. Now, in your particular case, and we're going to get to that when we look at the years, you're inverted. You're in a 9-year where your south node and your north node are flipped. So it's going to be important when we get there. Thank you. Anyone else? Nicole, it's all clear. Great. Excellent.
Yeah,
Okay.
wait, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hand is raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it.
Okay, so if someone is in a relationship and obviously, can you go back to the slide that we were at before? And let's just say I've attracted someone that needs to bring these qualities to life, like with that mirror concept. If I feel like almost like this person that I'm with couldn't be bothered with me, how do I know what area I couldn't be bothered with myself? Almost like lack of prioritizing myself in that area.
Is that
Or
your reason?
Well, that's my question. Like, how does that relate to my south node in Libra in the 12th? Is that in the 12th?
Okay,
No,
well, we're talking about transits for a minute, and you're an interesting case because you happen to have a Libra sun and moon, so the south node is affecting you even doubly. But let's go back to something universal for everyone. If someone is in your life, this person doesn't feel like they could be bothered with you, right? It's almost like you're a nuisance. You're insignificant or you're a nuisance. That's what you feel about yourself. My invitation would be the earliest memory, and this is for everybody. When you identify, and the words are very important, they couldn't be bothered. That's what you feel. I can't be bothered with myself, or I can't be bothered to care for myself, an example. Try to close your eyes, and if you guys want to do this now, you could take a moment of when is the first memory that you have of feeling that. The younger, the better, but sometimes we don't get that the first time. So even if it was 3 days ago, it doesn't matter. But close your eyes for a moment and find your own statement of where you couldn't be bothered or someone couldn't be bothered with you and your version of it, and see what's the earliest memory. Don't think that comes up. So I see a few people nodding. So Sophia, what did you get? And then Jim, you can share if you'd like.
Dad in Highland Ranch on the phone with the hospital. And I was like 3 or 4.
Okay, and he couldn't be bothered with picking you up, or where were you at the hospital waiting?
No, I think I just went to give him a hug like after school, and he kind of just like pushed me away because he was like on a work call.
Okay. So when you start identifying that the current person has nothing to do with the situation, this is in your head, 99.999% of the time it's going to be your mother or your father, you start realizing that it is an unresolved, in this case, I was a nuisance at 4 years old. Of course, I'm still a nuisance at 22 years old. All you've done is change the face of the person. So dad to this person, to the boss, to your friend, the pattern follows you. The older you are, and we're going to string that in a moment, the years, so you could start planning and plotting it out, the more you can identify that thought, this person couldn't be bothered, or I am a nuisance. With each of these cycles, you're going to start pulling the thread of the wounding that occurred with the moon. So going back to your question of the 12th house, the 12th house is the bottom of the ocean. Nothing is bothered at the bottom of the ocean. You're thrown to the bottom of the ocean. You don't want anyone to find you. So there's something in you that you don't bother with. Perhaps it's an escape, but there's something that you toss to the bottom of the ocean. Maybe no one wants to find out, or I don't want to see that part of me. So we start to layer, but the words that we use to describe the other, especially those first few words, if we can connect to that first moment that we felt that, the younger the better, but again, it's not necessary. It will start to unfold. We start to realize that it has nothing to do with the current day. And because the nodes began from the moment that we were born, we see that we've been dragging this thought with us because it's serving us in some way. Jim, did you want to share something?
Yeah, the first memory came to me was third grade.
What
My
was
dad
your
had just
statement?
my statement.
Yeah, like what were you also looking at I can't be bothered?
Oh, well, the memory is of that I was a nuisance.
Oh,
I was in the way.
in the way. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what
and it was basically a situation in which, in the third grade, we were touring my dad's newly owned business. It was my mom and my dad, and then my dad's business partner and his wife. And I was somewhat condescendingly told to be quiet and to stop being a nuisance by my dad's partner's wife. And it was just very belittling, and that was the first memory that came to mind when you invited us to go there.
Now, I just want to make a point here. Both Jim and Sophia are triple Libras, and the word for Libra is people pleasing and appearances. And they both feel like a nuisance. If you feel like a nuisance in your presence and your entire identity is about being pleasing, you're going to go to great lengths to not be a nuisance and to be pleasing. And they both happen to have their sun in the 12th house. So let me hide so far out of the way so I am never a nuisance again. So it's just so marked with the two of you. Suzanne, I see you have your hand up. Yes,
So,
it's definitely a psychological orgasm. So for those of you who are new to my teachings, psychological orgasm is an addiction that we have to the wound, to feeling less than, unworthy, a nuisance. We get addicted to what that gives us emotionally, psychically, physically, all of it. Absolutely. The moon is the first psychological orgasm. So what was your particular statement or your memory?
well, so it's funny because with being in the Libra and the 11th, my moon's in Pisces in the 12th, and my South Node is in a Pisces in the 11th. So I have a memory back of like being a baby, being left alone, and I felt like no one wanted me, and I was in the way or a nuisance. So I really can see now that theme in my life of my psychological orgasm of like, yes, see, they didn't want me, or see, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worth enough. Like constantly being neglected, which was me also being that baby left alone. And I can see where that, like, now I'm really truly seeing it in every arena, if that makes sense. I'm so tongue-tied because it's kind of mind-blowing. And then there's that psychological orgasm of like, yeah, see.
And we
so
get
when you talk about,
addicted to proving ourselves, AKA our parents, right.
yeah,
Because going back to the why, if our parents, and that's the next slide, if our parents are supposed to be the ones that love us unconditionally, and they felt we were a nuisance, and they neglected us, and they fill in the blank, who are we to say, oh, no, that's wrong, they did it wrong, we know better? None of us have that template. That's your North Node. That's why it's so uncomfortable. That's why that sign of that node bothers you, because it's like, oh my God, that's exactly what I need to be. And I don't know how to be that. I don't have permission. That isn't in my cup. That isn't my shared experience. That isn't what I was given early experiences around. And so your parents do not love you unconditionally. Your parents, and I'm a big believer, and I know that there's a whole psychological theory on attachment and respect to Bowlby and Ainsworth, but I have experienced, and what I know with astrology and enough clients, nobody has a secure attachment style. Insecure attachment is found in your moon sign. Conditional love is not possible by a parent because your own parents do not love themselves unconditionally. They give you physical food, and that's metaphorical as well, right? If you have a form of gluttony, I'm too much, right? People say all the time, I'm too much, or I'm not enough, scarcity, which can represent itself in food and alcohol and all that good stuff. That's your moon sign. That's what you see the world as. We're going to do a short activity in a minute with that. Your nodes open that up. Your nodes say, especially your North Node, this is the sign by house and by sign how to love yourself unconditionally. Going back to the motherless comment of the song. It's beyond God's space. If God is mom and dad, and that's what happens in our psyche, the North Node tells you, go beyond what they said you were capped at. It's also a secure attachment style. I am a believer that you can only have a secure attachment style with yourself, you and your inner child. Then that is reflected into your relationships with parents, with siblings, with friends, with lovers, etc. It's spiritual food. Spiritual food sometimes is very difficult to swallow, right? It's not very tasty sometimes, the truth. And you're satiated. You are enough. You feel that what you have is enough. Who you are is enough. That gluttony or the scarcity settles. That's the balance of the nodes. The balance is in there. You're like content. You have some self-mastery. It doesn't mean that you don't have small pendulum swings, right? The pendulum swings. Everything's in movement. Everything's in rhythm. But there's a calmness to your choices, to your actions, to your thoughts, because you feel enough. And this is the work of a lifetime. This does not end. So I use this visual because, again, here is you on Earth. This is your life. Your North Node shows you how to attach to yourself securely and unconditional love that can then reflect onto a relationship. Your moon is mom. Your sun is dad. They gave you life. Yes, they provided the vehicle. And your South Node tells you detach, detach, detach. That is old pattern. That is old thinking. Maybe at that moment, you were not enough. Maybe at that moment, you were a nuisance. Maybe at that moment, no one wanted to see you. But when you attach to yourself healthfully, securely, you aren't a nuisance. You are enough. You want to see you. And you learn a balance of what's enough for you, or how to love yourself, where your values are, where you stand, your place in the world. And now you become the center, what we call the axis mundi of everything. But it's from a place of satiety. It's a place of enoughness. So that's the gift of the nodes. Now, I just want to reiterate this. In your natal chart. So I think it was Andrea said that she had her south node in the second, her north node in the eighth. That's in her natal chart. Everybody identify that. That's what this is, your north node in your natal chart. Your current day transits are all, no matter what, in Libra and in Aries. Wherever those are crisscrossing, that's the section that you're working to become securely attached to yourself, where you're working to love yourself unconditionally. So they work together. The transits support your natal chart. Some people, and you'll see that in a moment, the ages are currently having a transit at the same time. So it's an even better, so to speak, opportunity. But every single one of us has right now this opportunity, wherever Aries and Libra is, to connect to ourselves securely, love ourselves unconditionally, and let go of that belief of I'm a nuisance, I'm not enough, I don't deserve being loved, or whatever your thought is. Remember, Aries is the thought that is creating all of this, and it comes from the south node. Okay, next activity. Write down a couple words. It could be linked to a role, a label, an identity that resembles who you are. Like you're certain about this identity. There's not a doubt. Now, write the exact opposite word or words. You can be that you're absolutely certain you are not that. Something you do not resonate. That's the opposite. Remember, we're working with polarity, the law of polarity and the two extremes. So if you said you're X, find the exact opposite or the thing that you are not, in contrast to that thing that you are certain that you are. Yes, Sophia.
So for one of my three that I wrote down that I like genuinely feel that I resonate with, one of them is teacher. The opposite would be student, but I don't necessarily not feel like a student.
Okay, so think if you're not in a teaching role, go a little deeper. So a lot of times with these spiritual teachings, we have to be creative. I'll tell you what I do. My technique, when a word enters my consciousness that I'm struggling with or I see it repeated, I Google a definition to see what's kind of out there. And then I start shaping it. So maybe Google opposite of teacher and see what that is. We're working in concepts. That's the difficulty of spirituality, right? These things aren't black and white. They're not linear. They're conceptual. Right. They're symbolic. So try to get, if a teacher gives information, maybe you don't like to be someone that receives information. Maybe that's the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know me so well.
Mirror, mirror. So, anybody want to share their 0 to 100 or their exact opposites?
I can share them. I put them on the chat, but
okay. Strong. You feel strong?
Yeah, I know I'm strong, but then
I know I'm strong, so you're not weak.
But I also feel like the other one is vulnerable, which in my mind I know it's not the opposite, but to me it's like bleh, you know, like weak.
Okay, but that's what you think. That's perfect. Okay, so strong, weak, or vulnerable. Okay, we're just going to use that one as the example. Okay, so I'm going to go here. So everybody, go to the word that you are not, and you just did it. Okay. One of my favorite reactions is so what happens in your body, Andrea, when someone tells you or you admit that you're weak and vulnerable? What is a visceral somatic thing that is happening? Do you twitch? Do you literally want to be nauseous? What is going on there? What's the judgment that emerges, the thought that emerges?
Like, you're disgusting, you're useless, why are you here? Like, why are you, like, if you can't pull your own weight, then why are you existing?
Wow.
Very intense.
Yeah, that's a biggie. That's a biggie. I just learned this week that there is a term in psychology called resiliency resentment. Resiliency resentment. For people that have to be so strong, they're resentful that their resilience is like this label and that they're so strong that they can't just be human. So it's really relevant. I would recommend Googling the Psychology Today article. I think it just came out a couple days ago on that. So connect to the word that you feel you are not and see what happens. What is the judgment? What comes up as a limiting thought? And so I'm just going to use Andrea's. You can't pull your own weight. You're disgusting and you're useless. So until that is resolved, you are not living your life. You're still living in the Libra South Node, people pleasing for another. So the next layer of work is that. And I'm just going to give you an example because you talked about your ex-boyfriend. It appears that you've done some inner work and you can see a new reflection in this person. The same compassion that you're showing towards him is the compassion for yourself for when you are in moments of vulnerability, when you are in moments of weakness. What happens when the words are so heavy, heavily weighted? And remember, even though Aries rules the head, Aries rules the physical world. It is the ascendant in the chart. It's when you birthed into the chart. So when you're birthed into your body, the first thing that creates is your limitations of your thoughts. If you think you are disgusting, where do you think that thought is going to manifest?
In all of my creation, in everything that I do.
In your body first. Yeah. And it could be in your creation, absolutely. If you get pregnant, that's passed on to your child as a projection and a shadow aspect, absolutely. So when we have such strong verbiage around the I am not, this is known as the via negativa. I am not that. That is the core work of the nodes. There is still a negative limiting thought you're harboring, Aries, because you want to please and live for society, Libra. And it is not your life. If nothing else, I highly recommend this be the activity that each of you walk away with really owning and doing. The power in the opposite, go back to the law of polarity, all truths are half truths. So with Andrea, somewhere, and you can again close your eyes and think of the first moment where you were weak or vulnerable, that's still haunting you. And so you're not living, you're hiding. You're trying to cover up the first moment that you were weak and vulnerable that you find disgusting, and you're running from that. And the invitation is to stop and say, why do I have such a strong reaction to the word being weak or vulnerable or dependent or whatever the word is? And as long as that reaction is still in you so strongly, not only will it manifest in a physical function of your life because it's the physical world, because a thought leads to your physical world. The second thing, and more importantly, is that you're not living your life. You're not fully whole and accepting who you are. And I venture to guess that it's something linked to your south node.
And this came out like this thing of me being strong, unnecessarily strong, came out when I was doing family constellations. And because I told her, like, I always struggle with my weight. And I did all of the, like, I used to be pre-diabetic, not anymore, but I'm like, I don't have a victim. Like, I don't have there's no biological reason. I eat well.
Weight isn't biological. Weight is emotional, and weight is unprocessed thoughts. You work this, the weight comes off. Weight is a protective factor that you're scared to be vulnerable. Be vulnerable, you lose the weight. I'll send you videos that I've talked about in other classes. That's very, very important. Your via negativa. So any word that you put on your list that you can 100% say with certainty, I am not that is what you are, and needs to be integrated and massaged and churned. Hence the churning of the ocean.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So next activity. I am, and you can already be that or in the process of becoming blank, and need blank from others to become it or to continue being it. So think about that, and then who would like to share? Okay, who would like to fill in the sentence? Okay. Sophia, I am becoming powerful and need validation from others to become it. Okay. Interesting. Anyone else? We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so Sophia, have you defined powerful?
No, and I knew you were gonna say that. I have like, I hear you in my voice, in my head 24/7, obviously. But I have like my synonyms, but not a whole definition. But that's also just what came to me. So I didn't really have enough time to process that.
It's better when it just comes to you, to be honest. It's more honest. So Suzanne says, I am becoming stable and secure and need acceptance from others. Okay. So we live in a world where others mirror and reflect back, right? So if Sophia receives validation and Suzanne receives acceptance, it's something internal that begins to shift. So these are my recommendations as you fill this in. Define what it is that you're becoming clearly. What is powerful? What is stable and secure? What are visible, observable traits of someone who is powerful? When we don't hold ourselves accountable and we just fill in the blank with this word, it has many different meanings to everybody. And then the other person cannot give you what you need because you don't know what to ask for. And so universally, when we went to the lemniscat of the Ouroboros swallowing its tail, it shows that this is a process of giving and receiving, of the flow and in and out of the pendulum, right? Mm-hmm. So as we give out to the universe a very clear definition, I want to become a powerful person because of A, B, C. I am a stable person because of A, B, C. Now the universe can bring it back via others as a confirmation because it has a specific definition or specific list of what you need to say achieved. If not, you set yourself up for failure, and guess who you want to prove right? None other than your parents.
That makes total sense. Yeah. It's like values, define and get clear. So
Yeah.
I was trying to come up with a quick answer, and then the acceptance, it's like, well, what are you asking for acceptance for?
And the thing is that once you identify what it is that you want clearly, you'll start receiving from the external world what it is that you want, because you've already identified, you've already been very clear. I want A, B, and C. And now people will be like, oh, wow, Suzanne, you're so stable in your yoga posture when you teach, Tadasana. I don't know, like you're going to start receiving it. And you're going to be like, oh, wow, that language is what I identified that I wanted. And then you start refining and refining and refining. And that's the purpose of the nodes. Remember, it's a refinement, a churning, a turning, a detaching. And so with Aries and Libra, it's the words, right? It's my thoughts turn into words that turn into the actions. But then I receive it back in Libra from the other. So I'm in the process of becoming more feminine. Okay. And I define that and need acceptance from others to become it. Then you're going to start, and I don't know what your feminine is particularly for you. I know that's something that I've been working on for 7+ years. I have very specific traits of that. For me, one of them is kind. Then if I receive that from another person or I hear that word, I'm like, oh my God, I'm turning that around. So get very clear on what the definition of feminine is. If it's physical, if it's a gesture, if it's the way you look, if it's a mannerism, get very clear on that. Nicole, self-actualized. Yeah, that's big. But again, I like to say three criteria that that exist when you become self-actualized. And then you're going to start receiving whatever that is that you want. Most of us want an acceptance or a confirmation or a validation or a reflection back from the other that we are indeed that. That is how we begin to use the polarity in our favor. And because it's Aries and Libra, we're looking at my individual self, my responsibility within, and then others giving back. Okay, so take a look at this picture. We're going to do an activity. You're going to have to close your eyes for this. So close your eyes and just take a deep breath and get really in the body. Try to really connect to your senses: smell, taste, touch, hearing. Really connect to the body here. And I want you to imagine that you're putting on a pair of glasses. Your eyes are closed. Put on the glasses. And the glasses are going to emit either your favorite color, your favorite memory, your favorite smell, your favorite holiday season, something visceral that connects to something really fun and loving that feels maybe like home or seasonal, something that really, really makes you feel joy and contentment. Keep your eyes closed, and the glasses are going to emit the scent or the season. Now I want you to imagine that you're walking around your home with the glasses, but the glasses are so safe, right? You know the smell. They'll lead you directly to, the Christmas pudding that you love, or they take you to your favorite candle. You don't need to have your eyes open because you trust and you feel safe that the memory or the season or the color is just never going to lead you astray, and really connect to that. Now, as you're walking around, you come up against someone that you absolutely despise. that when you see this person or think of this person, it could be media person, someone in your family, an ex, you cringe at the thought that this person is next to you. They're interrupting your beautiful memory, your wonderful smell, your wonderful taste. And you're just repulsed by them being next to you and ruining your memory. Now, I want you to let this person get close to you. They grab your hand with permission, you've given consent. And they tell you that they're going to show you around town or around your house or wherever you are, the way they see the world. And your job is to trust how they see the world as an option, that you're open to receiving what they share with you about how they see the world through their glasses. So connect to that for a bit and see what comes up. And then when you're ready and you feel safe, you can let them go and come back into your body. Okay. Anybody want to share? I'd love to know what you learned about how this person sees the world or experiences the world differently than what your glasses show you. Nobody? You don't have to. It's just, okay. So if no one wants to share, the function of this activity is the glasses represent the moon in your chart. And your moon, no matter the traits, no matter your relationship with your home, your childhood, your family, your siblings, your parents, your wounding, if they were alcoholics, if they were abusive, it does not matter. Those are the rose-colored glasses that you wear and expect every other person to be to you. It's associated with smells, even if they're repulsive. It's associated with memories, with locations, with visceral reactions. When someone else, typically it's someone of the sign of your North Node, it's not uncommon, enters or shows you the opposite, back to that polarity, I am this, I am not that, we tend to retract, not be open, not want to be exposed, and stay in what we consider our comfort zone, even if it's destructive. The nodes, and in particular your North Node, through transits and through your chart, are there to remove those rose-colored glasses. It's not true. Your moon is not the way to see the world. You identify it way too much with protection, with mothering, with childhood memory, even if it's self-destructive, even if they're unhealthy. And so the function of the nodes is to allow you to have other experiences that are oftentimes dramatically different than what you think love or the home or your favorite season or your memories are. So you see the world through your moon sign. It means mom, attachment, your love language, home, your fears. And you have a radar and you go through life, ding, 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 ding. Who shows up as that sign? Sometimes it's positive relationships, but sometimes it's not. Because every sign has low consciousness and high consciousness, has positive traits and has negative traits. And you don't decipher that this moon sign is positive versus this moon sign is negative trait. You just see, oh, in my case, Cancer moon, Cancer moon, Cancer moon. Where's my mother? Bing, 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 bing. And we're all like a radar to that, even if it's destructive. And so the nodes assist in churning and shaking you up. Again, that myth of the ocean being mom and the womb and the mother, so that you could see the world from a different perspective. Now, why the nodes change every 18 months and are in a different axis of your chart is so that you could see your moon sign through that lens. The next 18 months, your moon sign through that lens. The next 18 months, your moon sign through that lens, and start softening and broadening and expanding the view to say, oh, wow, this moon in Cancer is not all that. Look at all these other ways that I can view this thing: attachment, safety, love, fear, home, comfort. And so that's the expansion of consciousness that the nodes provide, in particular your North Node. The other thing that's related is the eclipse. You'll hear a lot about eclipse seasons. We tend to have 2 big eclipse seasons a year. Early part of the year, later part of the year. This is for you to do for homework. The last eclipse season was April 20 and May 5th, that time. Start to think back, now that you know your Aries node thoughts, where it is in your chart. Now start to think of what happened around April and May. This is like a notification of what's to come, of what needs to change, of what needs to forge ahead, of what path is starting to be paved. I'm a big journaler, and astrology, and that's the advantage or disadvantage, if you remember, a lot of people have poor memories because of all the trauma, is that memories, when you can remember years, you can do a lot of work. So I recommend that if you're a big journaler, date your journals, date your notes, so that you can look back and go, oh, that happened then, because you're tracking your cycles. Even though time isn't real, when it comes to our wounding and our trauma and using these cycles, we need the element of time because it's the earthly currency.
Francis, what year again did you say to go to?
That's this year. This is this year because it's related to this nodes. Great question. Sorry about that. I'm getting notified by my my moon in Cancer that I'm almost at time. I understand that if you need to go, the recording will be, but if you want to continue, I'm going to continue. Thank you, Adriana. So this is what I was saying, that everything's interrelated. And so when we hear like, oh, where's the node? Or what does this mean for me? Or am I going to have a good year? Those questions don't give you the full spectrum of life, of who you are, of what you're here to do, of what your soul's about. Because you're constantly churning and seeing a new angle to the same problem. You have one problem, one moment of conception, one time of birth, one problem. These are all shifts that say, look at it this way, look at it that way. Let this person take you by the hand. Let this job show you. Let this relationship show you. But it's all the same thing because you're only one. And it's all to get you to piece it together. So when there's a nodal shift, moon, the nodes and where they're transiting, and then what was that eclipse season in this particular one? April 20 and May 5th. So it's around that 3-week period of April and May. Something started brewing. Something started you were thinking about. Try to think back and go, oh, that's a thread to pull linked to this. Suzanne, you had your hand up?
And I hope this isn't, sorry, I'm a little wiped out. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is, so we have these preset glasses, and these are basically like, put your rose colored glasses on and get your yellow colored Mars glasses out, or your yellow colored Aries glasses out, and put that lens on as you view your current situation, current life.
So the glasses refer to your moon sign. So I'm just going to use you because you said earlier that your moon is in Pisces. Moon in Pisces is a very specific set of expectations, right? Of what mom was, what mom should be, fears, home, right? Your experience. That's your glasses, your moon in Pisces glasses. You wear them 24/7. They never come out. So when we have a nodal transit or a major transit in our chart, yes, you're going to the attempt of the transit is to make you say, okay, that's your way of seeing the world, but can we invite a different way? Can this person show you this? Can this situation mirror this? Can this expand your consciousness on what you consider to be your moon in Pisces glasses? So it starts to expand consciousness around what you allow yourself to see, what you allow yourself to enter, broadens consciousness. But you never, ever, ever take off your moon glasses, ever. And part of the return home in spirituality, you know, we leave and then we return home, is to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly of those glasses that you wear all the time. That's why we need all these varied experiences, and we go, oh, I am this. This is exactly where I come from. This is my origin. These are the parents I chose. These are experiences that I chose. But now I have such a varied view on all of it. And so we expanded consciousness to basically end up, that's why at the beginning, I don't know if you remember in the quote, to end up exactly where we started, and why he says, it starts through wonder and where it ends, but it's not futile. We end up right not knowing why this family, why this life, why this trauma, this wounding, but being awed by it nonetheless. And the journey and that path and all these experiences say, oh, it doesn't matter why. This is what this is. This is what I'm here to do. And you surrender into those glasses. But you need a varied spectrum of the Home Depot paint wall before you can get to that. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to move on because I do want to get to the math part. Okay. So this is the homework you're going to do. So I told you to get your chart. This is the inner chart, is your natal chart. This is the transiting chart. Okay. First, find your natal lunar nodes. This person has South Node in Sag, North Node in Gemini. They're always going to be opposite. And they're going to be, in this person's case, in the 2-8. That is going to be your map forever. Stop becoming a Sag. Use the strengths of Sag. Let go of the comfort zone of Sag, escapism and so forth, seeking eternally, and become the Gemini that they're intended to become. So that's the first thing. The moon sign here is in Libra. So the glasses are Libra, and the goal, so to speak, is to become this Gemini North Node. The transits, because everybody has the South Node transiting Libra, in this person's case is in the first house, the North Node in Aries in the 7th. This is going to be in the next 18 months, the way to become the Gemini North Node, the way to expand consciousness around the Libra moon is through the 1-7 axis. The 1 is self and the 7th is others. And then the next question is, how can you use Libra and Aries themes, thoughts? I want to become something, but I need others to help me become that. Allow you to have some flexibility in how you view the world or how you view others, or to pause and move forward, but also bring people along with you. Remember the relationship theme. So part of it is the individual nature of Aries, trailblaze and go live, but wait, who do I want to come along with? And you'll all get these slides. So every single one of us at 9 and at 18, 9 years, 18, 27, 36, 45, etc., has endings and beginnings. Is anybody these ages, 18, 36, 54, 72, or 27, 45, 63, or 81? Andrea has to be one of these ages. and Lori. Now remember, this is about 19 months. So we're talking maybe 63 and a half to 65. Everything in astrology is about a year and a half, 2-year range. Okay, Nicole, so 45. So you're in the 9. I'm going to explain now. And Andrea's 27. So she's also in the 9. So I'm just going to show you the example. Here's a person that has the south node over south node and the north node over the north node. Can you guys see that? The 2 cups are side by side. They look like this over here and by here. Every single person at the age of 18, 36, 54, 72 has that. Those are amazing years. If you have my spiritual adulting book, I go in detail. Those are when the doors of your future are wide open. The 2 people that have this happen to be in this, and we'll talk about that because that's the harder time. So when your south node and your south node are next to each other in the same sign, so if you happen to have a south node in Libra, right now you have a south node in Libra, the world is your oyster, because that means that your north node is over your north node. However, if you are 27, 45, 63, 81, you're going to have your south node and your north node side by side, and you're not going to want to let go. Something is going to feel that is taken from you. And over here, your north node and your south node are side by side. And you're going to have more of a churning, more of a suffering of letting go of that rose-colored glasses. So ages are very, very important. Let me go back to the 9 and the 18. So every 9 years, 9, 18, 27, etc., you're going to have a nodal exchange. The ones that are 9 and then 27 and then 45 and then 63, those are going to be hard because they're crisscrossed.
Is that just when sorry.
Go ahead.
Just when this nodal transit, like at this moment, or is it just saying that in general?
No, this is it your entire life. These are ages for everybody. So when you're 9, when you're 27, when you're 45, when you're 63, so take 9 and add 18, and then add 18 and add 18. Those years are going to be hard. They're going to feel that something is taken from you, forced, so that the new map and the new road and the new path can unfold. If it's 18 and numerologically 8 plus 1 is 9. It's the same thing. 9 is the number numerologically of endings. But when it's 8 plus 1, the future is open to you. You're going to want to let go of whatever it is. You're just going to know where to go. The flow just comes. 18, 36, 54, 17. So it's 18 plus 18 plus 18 plus 18. So that's standard across the board, no matter who you are. Those ages are set as stages. Then we'll talk about now. Yes, they're all listed in numerological. And yes, Lori, you're in that crisscross now. Okay. Everybody else, if you're not at that age or any of those ages, you have to find your nodes where you have Aries and Libra. And that house, that axis, 1, 7, 2, 8, 3, 9, is where you're experiencing this loss or growth of Aries and Libra. So the 9 and the 18 years, which is just 9, is linked directly to your natal nodes. Every other year that it changes, every 18 months, you're adding a house now. So it's another area that you're going to start seeing a shift. So let's track the pattern. Every single person had this node. Don't worry about north, south, 1836, none of that. Every single one of us had what is experiencing now, November 2004 to June 2006. So think back what happened in those years. Something happened. And if you can't think of it now, that's part of your homework. This was the last time that you had this node. And what you want to start doing is finding a pattern of what you're living out now or working on or thinking about changing to what you did in 2004 to 2006. Prior to that, it was 1985. And if you're old enough, prior to that, it was 1966. Every 18 years, anytime the nodes shift, look back 18 years because there is a pattern. Does anybody know offhand what happened to them in 2004, 2006? I had like 10 things. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, it's like exact. It's like a diary.
I have one. My grandma, my mom's mom, she died. But it was really traumatic because my mom was with my grandma and I asked her to go buy something from me. And when she left, my grandma died. And for a long time, I felt like it was my fault. So it was a big thing.
So you have your nodes. First of all, you're 27. So you have a 9-year, which is an ending or a death of some sort. And death does not have to be physical death. Death could be a breakup. It could be, you literally broke your leg in half. I mean, death is metaphor. One. Second of all, so you already tracked that there's some sort of death. Your nodes are in the 2-8, and the 8th house is the house of death. So you already start to track what's going on. So there's going to be an ending of some sort, and endings are considered deaths because deaths are rebirths. And remember, this is all about rebirth from self. So going back to what you said, you felt it was your fault. If you feel it's your fault, that has to do because you want to be strong. That's your coraza, your shield. I'm strong. I have to take on this responsibility. Why? Who are you? You're not God that you killed your grandmother, right? I mean, so you start to see how the thought you want to believe that you're not weak and vulnerable suits you. And so you wear this armor and then you call it weight. And then I was strong and I took the responsibility and I saved my mother. And it starts to build the story around the signs and the houses. Sony moved to Florida and you've been wanting to move, right? We've been talking about that. And Jen, you adopted your youngest child who just is graduating, right? So what came in now leaves. So you start to see a pattern of what's going on with the thematics. And then you go to the house and you got a visa to do an internship. And are you in something with travel or education or some mode of that now? Start to track that. So those themes start to repeat. We think that our life is a million things. You really strip down your life, you're really just trying to not be your moon. Like, bottom line, you're trying to be like, okay, I don't want to be this anymore. I want to live my own life. I have to rebirth in these situations. When you really strip them and you start to mark the dates, you start to realize that they're just one continuous map that unfolds. So tracking your dates and your patterns, if you're really serious about astrology, and I'm not talking about sticky note astrology, I'm talking about really knowing yourself, getting curious about your life, who you are, what you're here for, the why, the how, all of it. Get a notebook, start tracking your dates, your patterns. Everything is a pattern. Everything. You are sacred geometry. Your life is sacred geometry. I cannot stress that enough. And so when you start to identify the patterns and the cycles and the years and so forth, you start to realize that there is a very clear map of what's going on here. And the awe just becomes even more. So Aries and Libra is all about balancing. What are we balancing? We're balancing selfish. One of the words of Aries is selfish. That leads to self. And then service for others. Individual versus community, right? What is important for me in meeting my needs, and what do I have to perhaps people please or be codependent or be more group focused. Those are the balancing act here of Vishnu. So from an esoteric astrology point, if you go to your chart and you find, let me just give you an example for those that are not familiar with what it looks like. This is the symbol of Aries. It's the red ram's head. This line here is called a cusp. You see these lines? Those are called cusps. Wherever you have the cusp of Aries, in this person, it's in the 7th, that is going to be the start of your spiritual journey. It does not matter how many times you've gone round and round and round in your life with the same theme. Where you have the cusp of Aries, that's what we call a spiritual initiation. So in that person's 7th house, friends, relationships, just kind of close, it could be legal relationships, it could be romantic relationships, marriage. So that begins, that theme for every single one of us begins our spiritual initiation. Right now, that's the important of right now, since everybody has their North Node in Aries, we're all getting initiated into something, into some version of a deeper spiritual self. So a lot of times people will come to my practice and go, oh, I've already worked that. No, you worked at 1, 2, 3, 20, 30. There's still until your last breath to work the same thing. When in doubt, start wherever you have the cusp of Aries. And because right now everybody has the North Node there, that's where we're going to be migrating further. And because Aries rules your head and all spiritual paths begin with changing your thoughts, you want to start reframing the thoughts you have about that house. So in that example, I showed that person needs to reframe their thoughts around relationship, romance, close friends, things like that. What if Aries smack dab in the middle of a house? That would mean that you have what's called an intercept. If you have an intercept, your Aries and your Libra are both intercepted. There's no cusp. That means that there's no energy. It's going to be even harder to break out of that thinking. So some people have intercepts, and not always in Aries and Libra. Some have it in Virgo and Pisces, but that's going to be area stuck energy from a previous lifetime. And so this node is even more important because you have to work harder to break out of it. But it's still in that house. Even though it's there, it's still in that house. It just doesn't have a cusp for it to flow freely. Yeah. Another layer that you created because of your moon in Pisces, because you want, no. So a big question with this particular transit that we all have, is it me or is it we? Is it I or is it us, right? An I-we structure. So Aries is going to call you to confront your fears, be impulsive, bold, assertive, courageous, right? Be strong, as Andrea says. Whereas a Libra is trying to get you to end cycles, perhaps of codependence, people-pleasing, attachment, etc. However, these things work as a balance. It's all a balancing act, right? It's about unifying the polarity. It's not about either or, it's about both. And in my previous slide I had, if you want to go fast, go alone. That's Aries. If you want to go far, go together. That's Libra. So the balancing act is, how far do I have to go by myself, meet my own needs, right? I cannot be long all the time. There are times that I have to be alone, independent, contemplative, meet my own needs, and I can't rely on others to validate me. Whereas when do I have to slow down and wait for the group and really utilize either the mirror of the group, what I don't like in others to inform myself, or just be a team player, right? It's not always hierarchy. There's sometimes spiritually, it's always circularly, where we all have a voice and an equality. But we live in an earthly world. So sometimes it's hierarchy and sometimes it's collectively. And that's the question. in the axis that you have the nodes, what part of this is going to be an I and what part is going to be a we? When's it going to be about me and perhaps needing to be selfish and moving forward without you? Perhaps, again, leaving somebody behind and saying, you don't serve me any longer. Or when is it, wait, I have to slow down, I have to stop and go and kind of pick up the pieces of whatever that is to move along with the person or the group or the team. So the question or the invitation, the assignment, if you choose to take it, is Aries is impulsive. It wants to do, slash and burn, not think, just act. What's that saying? Ask for forgiveness instead of permission type of thing. I'm just going to go bulldoze and just do it. And then I'll figure out the consequence later. Whereas Libra is so indecisive. It cannot make a decision. Oh my God, over worry, have plan C, D, F, F, G, H. I mean, that it's the midpoint. So where can you stop in this axis where you have your nodes? The emotions of impulsivity and having to do it and needing to do it now, bulldoze and run everyone over so that you can get what you need. Take the breath and choose for either way. Taking the breath to pause to choose makes you stop and think not only of yourself, but consequences in others. And with Libra, it's the force of choosing something. If you're into tarot, it's the indecision card, the lover's card, number 6. It's the card that is linked to choosing. You must choose. Life, going back to life, the answer to life, if you want to know the short answer to life, is you gotta choose. But you gotta choose consciously from your North Node, not from your moon. A choice that is made conscious in a pause with a breath, intentional, will always create a loss. Always. And you have to be prepared to lose something when you choose something. If not, it is subconscious, it is from the moon, it is from child. You are not choosing actively. And then you will get a consequence, fall into victim, boo-hoo. And such is, you're not living your own life, but you're living for another. So this particular transit of these nodes is so important because it collectively brings in the main spiritual teachings. Limiting thoughts, obviously, expanding consciousness. How those thoughts can create your physical life, which could be illness in your physical reality. Having to choose to burn karma and to live from a conscious state of mind. It's your spiritual initiation path. That's the importance of this transit. Second house is values, what you value. Any questions? I'm wrapping up. Okay. So I mentioned this already, of these ages, every single one of us, and this is about a 2 years. So if I say 18, imagine 18 to 20, 36 to 38, give yourself that 1.5 years, 2 years, because you have all that time. So what are the houses? If you're transiting the 1-7, it's about me or you, right? An I or a we. If it's the 2-8, we're talking about inner riches and outer riches, what we value and what we possess as things. The 3-9 has to do with our thoughts. Is it knowledge or is it wisdom? Do I have a bunch of facts or do I know how to apply them? The 4-10 is your home life and your work life. Your 5-11 is, are you self-expressing, self-love? I think it was Nicole that mentioned self-actualization. That would be a 5th house theme. And then the service to others, the community, humanity, as a result of that self-actualization, what are you giving back? And your 6th house and your 12th house nodes would have to do with logic, your linear day-to-day logical life, and then your faith. How do you balance a faith and a logic, a linear logical life with a more faith-based? So this is the balance that's being asked of you with the the nodes. It does not matter if they're natally there and or transiting there. It's the same meaning. Any questions?
Yes, because I don't know astrology as much as everyone else. I'm really sorry. So the transit is where those elements are in you, where you are natally. So like my Aries is is 12th house. Is that
Where do
Aries-
you have this symbol?
in between? We're smack dab in the middle of the 12th.
Okay, so it's in the 612. So
Okay.
the invitation is, what's the balance of your logical life and your faith life, right? Your practical day-to-day earthly reality, and what's your spiritual reality, a spirit and matter union. That's the balance.
Thank
and
you.
there's thoughts that need to be explored because it's Aries that you have that are possibly limiting and fault around that area of your life. Great question. Any other questions?
Yeah, so the houses, we're supposed to check them in our chart.
Well, you have the 2-8.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So you're in this. And because of your age, you're transiting in the 2-8 and your natal is in the 2-8. So that's your focal point this next 18 months.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we go? No? Okay, I'd really like to wrap up with this song. More so, besides I love the song, it's the face on this man that just makes me so happy, and the joy that this smile makes for me. So I'm just gonna stop the recording, but it is, look at that, A Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. I absolutely adore this song and his face and his smile of just realizing how beautiful and wondrous this world is. The last thing, that as hard as it is, I want to just bring you back to that quote. When you feel that you're separate, oh, I don't know if I'm sharing. Am I sharing that? I don't think I'm sharing the screen yet. Hold on. When you feel that you're separate, when you're feeling alone, when you're feeling that there's no path or that you're just wandering aimlessly, that's really when we're most unified, because that is a shared universal human experience. And we get to see a rainbow or a sky or clouds and realize, wait a minute, there is somewhere where we meet. So that's all I got for you. I just want to close up. Thank Vishnu, thank all of you that you guys come and listen to my rants. And thank you that I get to do what my soul came to do here, my North Node. And thank you all so much. And may we all find a semblance of balance in what that means to each of us by the time we take our last breath. I really, really thank you so much, all of you. I'm going to stop recording, and if anyone wants to stay and ask some questions, I'm free for a good 5 minutes. Give me a sec.